Well, in case you didn't know, tomorrow is World Autism Day, and this year marks the 15th annual World Autism Awareness Day. And April is also World Autism Awareness Month. So today we're speaking with pediatric neuropsychologist at the St. Luke's Center for Autism and Neurodevelopmental Disabilities, Dr. Elena Harlan, to put a spotlight on awareness here in the Treasure Valley. Dr. Harlan, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Perfect. Well, first of all, why is it so important to have a World Autism Awareness Day in the first place?
Well, I think, autism has been increasing in prevalence over the years. It affects approximately 2% of children. It's a social communication disorder, so it can impact functioning in a variety of ways. And so the earlier we can identify it and get children into treatment and services, the better. So being super aware of it, I think, is really important for kids and their outcomes.
And speaking of identifying it, what are some symptoms and signs of autism?
Well, at its core, autism, we call it autism spectrum disorders. At its core, it's a social disorder, and it really impacts the ability of a child to understand their social world, to process their social world, to know how to respond to their social world. And it can also impact communication and how a child can communicate socially. But there's other symptoms too along with it, like difficulties with transitions, kind of insistence on sameness, rigidity with routines, repetitive behaviors, strong interest in certain topics, and the way the child perceives their sensory world or their environment. They can kind of either be have difficulties with too much sensory stimulation or too little.
Just how common is autism? I know some folks have friends or family members who are dealing with that. I mean, how common is it?
Well, I think the new CDC estimate says about 1 in 44 children have been diagnosed with autism. So that's a little bit over 2%, which is quite a bit than what it used to be many decades ago, which is more like 1 in 2,500. So we're really shedding a spotlight on all of the children who may be more mildly impacted by their autism symptoms and are able to get them diagnosed and into proper services.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the resources out there for families or folks dealing with autism?
Sure. So there's a couple of more national resources that we might recommend that if parents have concerns that their child might not be developing normally. Now autism usually shows up in the early years. Sometimes the symptoms are not really apparent until a child gets into school and has to be social and has to interact in the school environment. But a child really does show symptoms at a very young age. It just doesn't show up, as a teenager. So if parents have concerns about their child having social difficulties or having delays in their language, there are some good resources. The CDC has an Act Now, Know the Signs resource just to look at typical child development. So parents can look at that. There's also a lot of really good information about autism on the CDC website. Also, there's another organization, national organization called Autism Speaks that has really good information about autism symptoms. But secondary to that, if the parents are concerned, we do recommend that they talk with their child's primary care doctor about it, like their pediatrician or family practice doctor or advanced practice provider, because they can do some screenings and decide if the child needs to have additional assessment done.